It's like wearing a really uncomfortable bra. As soon as you're home, get comfortable, take off your bra, take off your leg, feet up, foot up.
From Mamma Mia, I'm Mia Freedman and you're listening to No Filter. Ellie Cole lost her leg when she was just 3 years old. She remembers almost nothing about it, although the same can't be said for her poor mum. Ellie had a twin sister and 2 older siblings when her leg had to be amputated. And she says that because she was so young, it means that she has no trauma whatsoever around her disability. It's just something about her, like the colour of her eyes. She's too busy winning medals in the pool to be traumatised, and she brought that same extraordinary spirit that powers her through the water into the studio here at Mamma Mia to record this interview. There are so many questions that I wanted to ask her about having a prosthetic leg, and her leg is just incredible to look at. It's like something out of Transformers, and she's incredibly proud of it. She answered every single one of my questions with her signature humour and honesty, and we laughed a lot in this interview together, and I learned so much. Oh, and you'll really want to hear what happened when she was at school and some idiot boy tried to bully her. It is the single best story I've ever heard on this podcast. Here is the delightful Ellie Cole. First question, how many legs have you got?
2.
I mean, how many prosthetic legs have you got?
I have no idea, to be honest. When I was growing up, I used to have one replaced every 6 to 8 months because I was growing so quickly. But now I kind of just get a new one when my old one starts falling apart, which isn't a situation that you want to be in. But I probably have about 10 or 12.
Do you keep the old legs?
I've only kept my first one. It was really funny. My 5-year-old niece pulled my old prosthetic leg out of a box somewhere at my parents' house the other month. And I was 3 years old when I got my first one, so it's pretty tiny. And she's like, "Look, Mummy, I have 3 legs." And I was just like, oh, my God.
Oh, I saw a picture of your mum sitting on a bed with holding that leg.
And you have seen it then.
Yeah, and I couldn't work out whether she was either laughing or crying. I couldn't tell.
She's crying.
Oh.
I know. It's really hard for me because obviously I was 3 years old when I lost my leg, so I haven't really seen my parents go through the brunt of it. And then when I see videos of Mum, holding my little prosthetic crying, I just don't think of her in that way. And I'm like, oh, God, that's hard. That's really hard to watch sometimes.
Do you have any memories of before you lost your leg?
No, I don't. I do have one memory where I was standing up in my cot when I was 2 years old and I was really uncomfortable. I'm not sure if that's because I had cancer in my leg at the time or not, but I couldn't go back to sleep. But I do have a memory right after I lost my leg where I had to learn to walk again. And there's this giant teddy bear in my memory, and it's huge. It's like 5 times bigger than me. And I went back to the clinic about 10 years ago, and this teddy bear is tiny, and it just goes to show like how small my world was back then. So yeah, not many memories associated around having cancer or going through surgeries or going through the chemotherapy, thankfully. I'm very grateful for that.
All of those memories obviously are held very tightly and deeply by your parents, by your mum. What has she told you about that time, about your diagnosis and what happened afterwards?
I didn't ask too many questions as I was growing up because, when you're a kid, you're so self-centered. So as I got older and I guess more emotionally mature, I was interested in learning about how my parents coped with, their little girl being diagnosed with cancer. So I started asking questions, and I think it brought up a lot of raw memories for them. And it was really, really tough. Mum obviously opens up to me about it, but some things are very hard for her to talk about 20 years later. And yeah, I completely feel for her. And, it's really strange. Obviously, I didn't choose to have cancer. I didn't choose to go through all of that chemotherapy, but there's like something that's deep inside of me that almost feels like I have a bit of survivor's guilt. And I know that sounds silly, but, when you hear about what your parents went through and what your siblings went through and how cancer can just completely rip a family apart, and you know that you are kind of in the center of that, like it doesn't make you feel very good. So anytime I hear about families who are going through a cancer journey, I really do feel for them. And it's incredible at the other end how closely it can bring your family together, even though during the time it can be really, really difficult. My family are so close now. I just love them all so much.
How old were your siblings when you were diagnosed?
So I had a twin sister, interestingly. She was obviously the same age as me, so 3. And she used to sit by my side during all my hospital visits and all my chemotherapy and like just draw pictures with me and play games with me. So I was very blessed to have that. And funnily enough, when I was going into my surgery to have my leg amputated, she also thought she was going in to surgery to have her leg amputated as well because she like wanted to be like me, obviously. So, that's guess just goes to show like the innocence of a young kid. My sister was a few years older than me, and she was at the age where she understood what I was going through, and that was a really tough time for her. And there's this memory that goes around in my family of when I came out of surgery, and my dad didn't really know how to cope with the fact that I had my leg removed. And so he pulled the sheets back and told my sister to look at the leg that wasn't there anymore. And she fell down like a ton of bricks, just hit the floor. And she always blames me for her weak stomach to this day. And my brother was also a little bit older. So
I come from a big family. Your parents had a lot going on.
A lot. And during that time, my brother also was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So my mum was just in and out of the hospital nonstop throughout pretty much our entire childhood. And when we all left the coop and went off to live in our own houses with our own families, she decided to go to university and study nursing. And, so she's graduated now and is now a nurse and helping other people in palliative care, which is really, really cool.
She sounds pretty extraordinary.
Oh, she's the best.
How high was your leg amputated?
So at the time, it was amputated just above my right knee. And since then, my leg hasn't really grown. So it's looked like it's gotten shorter and shorter and fatter. But in actual fact, it's just the same length as what it was amputated at. So I don't know how it works, but
so
when
it stops growing. So it's like you've got a little 2-year-old stump.
It's
Do
like
you call it a stump?
thing.
What do you call it? A stump? A leg?
Yeah, a stump.
Yeah.
So it's like this little fat wobbly thing.
Has it got a bone in it?
Yeah, it does.
But it's a little short baby bone.
It's just like because there's no muscle definition or anything there. It's just like this fat blobby thing. And it's really funny because when I swim through the water with it, and if you put it into like ultra slow motion, you can just see it like jiggling and jingling.
Really? So you can't build the muscle around it?
No. Well, if you think about like how muscle grows, you've got tension on either side. And so the muscle has to like contract and, tear to build. Whereas my muscle in my right leg has just kind of been wrapped around my bone and then stapled to the other side. So there's not really any tension or pulling on it. And so, there's really no way for me to build up like a strong, nice, thick stump.
And how does that affect tell me about what we wouldn't know about what it's like to have a prosthetic leg. I mean, you obviously grew up having, your first fitted before you even had conscious memory.
Well, I would like to know what it's like growing up with 2 legs because that would be I'd feel like an octopus.
Yeah.
Like there's just too many things to think about here. For me, like growing up with 1 was very similar to what it would have been like for you growing up with 2 in terms of like I didn't know any different. But a lot of people when they see me with a prosthetic leg, they don't really understand like how uncomfortable it can be. So it's made out of fiberglass and the socket part is made out of fiberglass. So you've got like this hot fiberglass shell around your leg. And, as you're walking, it kind of like rubs and cuts into your skin. And so like the longer you walk, the more it cuts and cuts and cuts.
Ellie, why isn't it padded? That seems brutal.
I don't know why it's not padded. I might go and talk to my leg guy about that.
I need to sort this prosthetic business out because I would have thought that was just so obvious.
I did have a padded one as I was growing up, but the more padding that you put in, the more it sticks out. So like when you wear pants, you've got like this weird thing sticking out at the top. So like I was, size 8 up on my shirts, and then on my pants I was like it could have been like a size 14, So like it depends. You've got to kind of sacrifice, you looking more normal at the hips or being more comfortable.
Yeah. So it changes your proportions. It makes you look out of proportion to what
100%.
your body actually is.
Mm-hmm. But it's really interesting. They've got this new technique that they can do called osseointegration. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
Where they hammer a titanium rod up into your bone and then your bone grows into it. And then you can kind of just clip your knee joint on, so you don't actually have to wear a socket because your knee is connected to the rod that's sticking out of your body. It's pretty messed up.
You going to do it?
Oh, man, I want to. But the problem is, because I play a lot of sport, if you fall on the end of it, at the end of the rod, it shatters your whole femur. So you've got to be a bit careful, and I'm a bit rogue-like at the moment, so I can't really just go and get it done because I live a very active lifestyle.
Do you always wear your prosthetic leg?
Not all the time. It's kind of like thank God this is a female channel because I always compare it to it's like wearing a really uncomfortable bra. As soon as you're home, get comfortable.
Yeah. Take off your bra.
Take off your bra, take off your leg, feet up, foot up, relax. So,
I was going to ask if it's like wearing high heels. Like that thing of...
I have no idea what that feels like.
Have you never worn high heels?
I can't wear them, which is tragic. Well, you can get foots that you can wear high heels with, but I barely know how to walk properly with flat feet, so I'm not even going to attempt high heels. But, I go to a lot of functions where people are wearing high heels. I'm like, oh, that looks amazing.
Because I remember when Paul McCartney was married to, I think it's Heather Mills, and she was an amputee. Is that the right thing to say, an amputee? Mm-hmm. Feels a bit like, I don't know, rude. Is it rude?
No.
Okay. She was an amputee, and I remember hearing her saying she has quite a number of different legs. She's got one with high heels. She's got one with, sneakers. She's got all different ones. And the leg is actually built
for that shoe.
Correct.
Man, that's what happens when you've got a lot of money, hey?
Yeah.
Imagine
that's the other thing. I never even thought about the money that it would cost to get legs. How much does a leg cost?
Well, the one that I am wearing now, brace yourself when I tell you this, but it's $160,000 and it doesn't wear high heels. I was very fortunate that I've got a wonderful sponsor in Toyota, and they started this big campaign called Start Your Impossible. And I was really wanting to walk in water for the first time, and I needed a waterproof prosthetic to be able to do that. And they were like, you know what, we want you to know what that feels like. You're a swimmer and you've never walked in the water before. And so they bought me this wonderful prosthetic that was designed by the US Army, of all things. And, it's been an absolute game changer, paddleboarding, surfing, walking in water, all of those things that I could never do before I can do now. So, they're very expensive.
When you had your other leg, it wasn't waterproof.
Mm-mm.
So if you went to the beach, had a shower, went for a swim, you had to take it off.
Yeah, and let me tell you, if you're at the beach and you have to hop from the sand into the water, you'll have buns of steel for the rest of your life. I tell you, it's the most tiring thing in the world. So I grew up on the beach and I hated going to the beach because it was really tough for me to get just into the water and then back out again. But now I'm going to the beach every weekend.
Can I ask you a funny question? When you don't have your leg on, do you hop around your house?
Yeah, I do. So I love all these questions.
Is it rude that I'm asking all these questions?
I love how inquisitive you are about it, because I don't usually sit down with people, obviously, and now I'm sitting down to a really large audience. This is the best.
Yeah, I don't mean to be rude. It's just all the things I've always wondered.
It's just funny because it's bringing up a lot of memories for me of when I was a kid.
Bad memories?
No, good memories. So when I was a kid, I grew up in this house where all the kids slept downstairs and my parents used to watch TV upstairs. And I used to always get really hungry during the night. And so I had to hop to the kitchen, which was going past the TV room upstairs. And I've developed this little silent hop. I've got all these different types of hop. It was like a ninja hop where I would hop past them. It's kind of like you hop onto the ball of your foot and then you roll down onto your heel, and it's a real fine art. And they never ever heard me. So yeah, I hop everywhere and I've got many different types. But it's bringing up a lot of good
so
memories.
you must have a bun of steel.
I got a really good calf muscle, let me tell you. Do you want to touch it?
Yes.
It's big, isn't it?
Wow, it's strong.
It's just because I do calf raises all day, every day.
Because I don't know why I hadn't thought until you just said that thing about waterproof. I assumed for some reason that you would swim with your prosthetic leg. I don't know why I would think that.
No, God, they weigh so much.
How much does your leg weigh?
I I actually don't know. They're all way different. But I remember when I used to go on boats when I was a kid, Mum told me that if I fell in, first thing I needed to do was take my leg off because she didn't want me sinking to the bottom.
Oh my
like
God,
a
the
scene
things that
from
she had to teach you. Your poor mother, the shit she had to remember.
100%.
As if it's not stressful enough having little twins. Just like, if you fall in the water, unclip your leg.
No wonder she was so close to a nervous breakdown throughout my whole childhood.
That woman, what a legend.
God bless her.
It's interesting because your leg, there seems to be two, with all my experience of prosthetic legs, there seems
What
to be
experience do you have?
zero. So there seems to be two types. The one like Heather Mills that I mentioned, that's what's the word? It looks like it's meant to look like a
lifelike.
Lifelike is the word. Yes. And then yours is very
techie.
Techie, thank you.
It like does not have any.
It looks like a machine, like it's an amazing. Is that because you're an athlete, and that's the leg that you wanted, or is that because it's waterproof? Like, have all of your prosthetic legs always looked like that?
No. So when I was growing up, Mum kind of wanted me to look the same as everybody else. Well, give me the best chance to be normal. So I used to have this prosthetic. It had like a spongy skin on it, and it was skin coloured, and then my socket would also be skin coloured. And then as I got older and started swimming, and I was very fortunate to be selected for the Australian swim team, I decided to put like the Australian flag on my socket, and I was like, that looks so badass. And then I just wanted to make it look more and more out there, and so the one I have now is like all black, and it kind of looks like a Batman leg. And then it's got the Australian flag up the top, and it just looks really cool. And I get a lot of compliments on it. But it's been really interesting because when I was younger and I had one that looked more lifelike, if a kid on the street said, "Mum, what's wrong with that lady's leg?" they would honestly get a hit over the head and be like, "Shh, don't talk about it, like she might hear you." But now that it's so out there and looks so cool, like if a kid says, "Mum, what's wrong with that woman's leg?" they're like, "Why don't you go up and ask her, like, how cool is it?" And
how does that make you feel, like, the difference between the two?
I don't know. I like it because like the more out there it is, the more accepted it is. It's kind of like it's showing everybody that I'm not ashamed of it and I'm not trying to hide it. Like it's kind of that's how it is, and I'm going to make it look as cool as I can. So I love when kids come up and ask questions and just want to know everything about it.
Like I am
like
now.
You.
You know, when small children who have no inhibitions and no sense of social norms come and ask me lots of questions.
That's how it should be, though. That is honestly how everything should be.
But not everyone with a disability feels that way. I've interviewed other people who have different forms of disability, and they say that they don't want to always be asked.
Yeah, I think I've met a lot of people who have lost their arm or leg as they've gotten older, so like in their 20s or 30s, and they seem to be a little bit less approachable when it comes to asking about their disability because they knew what it was like before, whereas for me, like, you know, it's like you asking me why my eyes are blue.
So it's not a sense of loss and trauma for you in discussing it, and are there bad parts about it, like things that are just like... Oh.
Only good. So you are right when you say it's not a sense of loss or trauma because I don't have any memories of having cancer. I do have, like, occasionally if I go to the doctors and, you know, have to, like I went into an MRI machine the other month and, man, that was like the scariest thing in the world. I didn't even know I had a phobia of it, but it kind of brings up old memories that I don't even remember. So obviously there are things that are buried down deep inside, but I don't sit and think about them all day. So, yeah, it's really, really interesting how people react differently to their disability and what it is. But you'll find that a lot of people on the Paralympic team just absolutely love it. There's a really good memory that I have of a swim team a few years ago where everybody put their prosthetics inside the elevator and they sent the elevator up to level 2. Level 2, and it came back down and the doors opened and this old couple stepped outside like what just happened?
Oh my God, it's like prosthetic pranks.
Oh man, it's the best. So yeah, I'm very, very blessed.
Having a twin sister, how did sort of that play out with the two of you being twins but having different bodies?
Fine. I was very lucky to have a twin sister because when I lost my leg, it's really hard to say this, but I was given a list of things that I wouldn't be able to do as a child by the doctors. So they would be things like riding a bike, rollerblading, running. And you don't want to tell a 3-year-old they can't do all of that stuff.
Wow.
But I was really lucky that I had a twin sister, Brittany, who it's really cute, just taught me how to do absolutely everything on that list. And there are videos of me learning to walk again and I fall over and it's cute. She's 3 years old and she picks me up and gives me a hug and it's come on, keep going. And all of those things that I was ticking off one at a time, I just have a memory of Brittany standing next to me and helping me with all of those things. Because, at the age of 3, 4 or 5, kids don't understand what limitations are, what you can and cannot do, as I'm sure most parents know. But for me, I was really lucky to grow up in that kind of age with a disability where I was just all right, I can't do this yet, but I'm going to learn a way around it. And that's what most kids do when they're developing and learning, is that they initially can't perform a skill or execute a skill and they have to find a way to do that. And it was exactly the same for me. So very lucky.
Apart from instructing you on how to remove your leg if you fall in the water, did you perceive that your parents treated you differently to your siblings because of your disability?
Not at all, which, again, I'm very lucky about. So I grew up not really understanding what having a disability meant. And, I got sent to school and it was kind of just good luck for your first day of school and that was it. There was nothing about having a disability and, we know what I had to be careful about. And so, I was really lucky that my parents didn't wrap me up in cotton wool. And, if my sister wanted to roll down the side of, a mountain, then my parents would also let me roll down the side of a mountain. And it kind of gave me this idea that I couldn't really use it as an excuse to get out of things or use it, as a reason to set me apart from everybody else. And it wasn't until I got to school and I had my teachers or other kids being oh, this is a basketball match, maybe you should sit this one out. And then where I was well, why are people sitting me out and benching me when I can do the same thing as all the other kids here? And that's kind of when I started realising that I was a little bit different, is when I went to school and other people were putting their social norms and kind of their social anxieties and, pushing that onto me. And I was really confused at first because I grew up in a household where my twin sister and I kind of just took over the world in our eyes. And then I would go to school and I'd be benched and I didn't understand why. And so that was really tough for me and I really struggled with that throughout, I guess, my early teens as well, where people would have these really different expectations on what I could do and it would completely differentiate on my own expectations of myself. So that's kind of when I found the Paralympics and that's kind of why I just absolutely love being a Paralympian and I love the message that Paralympians can send to an entire community about what having a disability means.
You were bullied at one stage in high school. What did you do?
Oh. Yeah, I was bullied for one day. It was my first day of school and it's really lovely. Mum told me that when I would go to school that I should never look down because it would kind of show that, I had something to be ashamed of and that it could open up me being a target for a bully. And so I kind of walked into my school gates and, man, I looked like such a dork on my first day of school.
What kind of leg did you have then?
The skin-coloured leg. So I had this skin-coloured, very fake-looking leg.
It didn't look real?
Oh, it did not look real at all. And I had these men's shoes on because Mum wanted me to wear orthotics. And I had this wheelie bag that I would wheel behind me so I didn't hurt my back. And it was just a tragic look. I was a target for a bully without the prosthetic.
And did you limp with it?
Oh, I still limp. But anyway, I went into my first class. It was drama class. And this kid, I shouldn't say his name, but his name was Zach. And he was like, "Oi, pirate." And I was like, that is the worst insult you could give. That is really not original. Anyway, he kept calling me pirate throughout my class. And my teacher at the beginning of the class, Mr. Richardson, told me that if anybody gives me any trouble, that I have permission to do what I please with them, kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
I know. That opens up a big can of whoop-ass for me. So, so I took my leg off and I threw it across the room at him and it hit him square in the stomach and shish kebabbed him. And you know what, though? I didn't get bullied, at all after that for the next 7 years of high school.
How did swimming start for you?
Well, swimming started from obviously acquiring my disability. So I started swimming when I was just 3, and it was 8 weeks after I had my leg amputated, and the surgeons recommended swimming to my parents because it was an activity that was low impact. You know, I could kind of learn to use my body again with the water without having like that extra strain on your body of gravity, I guess you could say. So I started swimming 8 weeks after, and I was going around in circles for a long time. And then I started swimming in a straight line, and then I went through like my Learn to Swim program.
How do you swim in a straight line when you've only got one leg?
Just do it.
Does it mean you have to overcompensate with your opposite arm to stroke harder, or?
No, I don't know, to be honest. I kind of just grew up swimming like that, so I don't really know any different. But if you kind of look at my body, I'm like very dominant on my left side and quite weak on my right side. And it's like when people see Paralympic swimming, they say like, oh, you're just missing a leg. But, you know, me missing a leg also means that I don't kind of have that cross connection with my body. And so like my right arm is also affected. And so like it's actually not just, you know, me missing a leg in the water. It's like the inability to use my entire right side of my body almost.
So it means you're quite asymmetrical in the water, and one side has to compensate for other parts not being there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like Paralympic swimming is the most fascinating thing in the world to watch. And like I race against people who are arm amputees. And so in a 50-metre freestyle race, they've got 2 legs. And so their start and their dive off the blocks is very powerful. And so I'm behind by a body length or, you know, half a body length, and then I have to try and catch up for the next 50 metres. But then like in a 400-metre freestyle, like I usually obviously have an advantage there because I don't know if you know much about sport, but the more like your leg muscles are so big that if you kick a lot, it produces a lot of lactic acid and makes you really tired. And so the poor guys with one arm, they have to kick their legs over 400 metres as hard as they can, and I can't even imagine how much that stings. So I've got an advantage with that. So like that's what I love about Paralympic sport is that like once you learn about it and understand it a bit more, it's so fascinating to watch.
How do the classifications work? Because, I mean, the word disability encompasses a huge amount of physical, mental, so many different types of disability. How does classification make it fair?
So in Paralympic swimming, obviously people have a range of impairments and not everybody is the same. And so they group similar types of impairments together. So in my classification, I usually have amputees that are above the knee or just below the elbow. And then you've got like a classification for people who have, you know, cerebral palsy, but there's like 3 different classifications for that depending on the severity. But it can be quite controversial because, you know, in swimming, say if you have cerebral palsy, swimming is a really great way to be able to treat that and be able to make your life easier and in terms of developing your strength. But then as your strength develops, your cerebral palsy isn't as obvious. And so you might start in like one classification and then train really well. And then you might find yourself changing classification because you've worked hard, and it can get really, really tricky. So, you know, at the end of the day when I'm racing in a Paralympics, I just do the best that I can and just hope that the other end that is a gold medal kind of thing. But I'm very lucky in my classification where, you know, if you've lost your leg, that ain't growing back. So it's pretty clear cut. Literally.
And somewhere like the Paralympics, where there's people from all over the world and, you know, more amputees in a concentrated space than you would probably see
crazy
ever at any other time. Does everyone compare legs?
Yes.
Like, do you get FOMO? And leg envy?
I trained with Bronte Campbell, and I was telling her about this just yesterday. So when you go to a Paralympics, you've got to think that 99% of the people there have a disability. So it's the largest concentration of people with disabilities that you'll find anywhere in the world. It is so much fun. So anyway, you're sitting in the dining hall, just imagine this, and you've got like all this food available to you, and so you're tucking into as much food as you can kind of thing. And then you look across and you see this guy walking on like 2 bionic legs, and you're like, oh, he's so lucky.
And so do you go and you go, dude, I like your legs.
Yeah.
It's a
I want your
perfect way
legs.
to start talking to people, isn't it? Perfect introductory line.
I guess so. I don't think that it would be a very successful pickup line, but you can...
At the Paralympics it would.
Can I try your legs on?
Yeah.
No.
It's like, hey, like your legs, nice legs.
Yeah, well, so the leg that I have is the most high-tech leg you can get at the moment.
Oh, so everyone's looking at your leg going.
So everyone's looking at my leg, but when I was at the Paralympics, I saw a guy that had 2 of my legs because he was a double leg amputee. And I was saying to Bronte at training the other day, I was saying to her, like, wouldn't it be really cool if I had no legs? And she looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I was like, if I had no legs, I could have 2 of these cool-looking legs and I would look so cool. And she just didn't understand. And I was like, oh, I need a Paralympic friend to explain this to because you just don't get it.
I was going to ask that in terms of what you said about it's just so awesome being around everyone that looks the same as you essentially or, you know, has something in common with you in terms of being an amputee. Does it feel like home in a way when you're at the Paralympics? Like there are things that only other people with a disability like yours can understand?
Yeah, like a lot of people who have a disability, I guess, try to hide the fact that they do. So, like, to backtrack 15 years or so, I didn't know that the Paralympics existed until I was in about year 6, so until I was about 11 years old. And I grew up racing able-bodied kids, and then I turned the television on one day and I saw the Paralympics on TV in Athens, 2004.
No one mentioned it to you?
Nope, nobody mentioned it. Anyway, so I was sitting there. I remember I was sitting there with my legs crossed in front of the TV, like, Mum, there are people on the TV who look just like me doing swimming. Like, this is the best thing in the world. And then 4 years later, I found myself in the athlete village, and it was just I can't even put into words how cool it is. You know, when people, I don't mind people so much making comments to me, but when you get it a lot and a lot over and over and over again for like 20 years, all of a sudden you walk into a Paralympics and like everybody there is just like looking at you in the eyes rather than down towards your leg. And it's like, you don't get that anywhere else. And it kind of sucks that you only get it for like 2 weeks every 4 years. But it's really cool. And the things you see are unbelievable. Like back to the dining hall, which is where everything happens. I saw a guy at the last Paralympics who was like cutting a steak with his feet. It's just...
Wow.
And you see things like that and you're like, I can't complain about anything. Like, just stop complaining.
How many have you been to?
So Tokyo, which is this year, very exciting, will be my 4th Paralympics. I haven't qualified yet, but I'm hoping I will.
Do you train as a full-time thing?
Oh, yeah. So it's – I was talking to Kate about this the other day. It's really funny when people ask, like, do you have a job? Because we just train all day, every day. So we usually train from anywhere from like 6 in the morning until 10:30, 11. And then in the afternoons again from like 4:15 to 6:45. And so it takes up your whole day. And in between those training sessions, you're either doing university or getting, you know, your body service with in terms of physio massage, or you're just napping.
I learned about napping from Kate and Bronte.
Oh, we are all professional nappers. It's really funny in the afternoon training sessions. Everyone always talks about their nap. It's like the topic of conversation because it's the only thing that we have done between the training sessions.
It's funny. I've heard people say that when you're at a health retreat, people talk about their poos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like when you're on a detox and everything, everyone's like, it just becomes what everyone has in common because of the lifestyle that they're leading.
That's true. My mum's been to a health retreat and she talks about a poo a lot.
I
Sorry,
think it's
Mum.
a thing that happens on health retreats. So you mentioned that you train with Bronte and Kate. Mm-hmm. How does your training differ to theirs, or does every swimmer's training differ because it's customised?
My training does not differ from theirs, so that can be really tough. I get a lot of sympathy looks from Kate usually across a couple of lanes because when we're doing training sessions, for me it's like touch, have about 3 seconds to get a breath and then go again. So I'm really blessed that my coach doesn't treat me differently to anybody else. He doesn't care that I've got a disability as long as I make the time cycles, you're doing a good job kind of thing. But for me, it can be really, really tough. So in my training program, everybody is training to win an Olympic or Paralympic gold medal, which is quite unique. And we are all so motivated to get to that gold medal and to get to that personal best time that I don't mind if I get smashed for 5 hours a day every day because everybody else in my program is doing the same thing and it's kind of we're all in it together. I love it.
For you, when you go and you're going to compete, do you walk out with your leg, take it off before you dive in.
Yep.
And then has someone got it for you at the other end?
Yes. Yeah.
That's someone's job to bring it round.
Someone's a little leg carrier.
Good. You deserve that and more.
I know. Someone needs to bring me like a pina colada at the end of my race as well.
Here's your leg and also a drink.
That'd be lovely.
Someone should have that job.
No, but we have that FOMO feeling at the end of my race too, because like I will get out of the pool and my prosthetic will usually be waiting just there for me, and then I'll see like 6 others and I'm like, oh, your leg's so cool. Here's your leg. But actually it was really interesting at the Commonwealth Games. I was racing against a girl who had crutches, and I got out of the pool and I put my leg on, and this girl was struggling to get to her crutches. She was from Great Britain. And so I grabbed her crutches and I brought them over to her and was like, oh, here's your crutches. And the whole crowd saw it. And then everybody started cheering. And then like I was reading articles the day after about how great my sportsmanship was. And I was like, well, what was I supposed to do? Just like leave her there?
Take her crutches.
Take them and run.
Yeah, just take them. Chuck them in the pool.
It's like, you beat me in the pool, but you can't beat me now.
That's right. Who's laughing now? Does a Paralympian, or, you know, for you as a swimmer, is your retirement age likely to be later or earlier than an
Olympic swimmer, an able-bodied swimmer?
An able-bodied swimmer.
These are really good questions. I've never been asked any of these questions before. So for a Paralympic swimmer, the average age on our swim team is about, I'd say, 22. And I think for the Olympic team, it's about 24. But we have a few outliers where, like, I'm 28. I'm one of the oldest on the team.
Oh my God, you're a pensioner.
I know, I really am. Like, I get up in the morning now. I'm like, God, everything hurts.
Is this going to be your last Paralympics?
I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe.
But you just said that. So the average age is 22. So you're 28. The one after this is going to be, you're going to be 32. You've got no plans to, hang up your togs.
No, not really. I don't know why. I don't know why
I'm not suggesting that you should.
Should I?
I don't think you should. If you enjoy it and you clearly love it and you're winning so many medals.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, about 3 years ago was when people were asking me what my plans were after Tokyo in terms of like what else am I going to do. I think people were just assuming that I'm going to retire. But I just love swimming so much. I'm waiting for the day where I get to training and I'm just like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Because that happens to a lot of swimmers, is that they're feeling fine, and then there's this moment in training where they just say, no, like, I'm done.
Did your double shoulder reconstruction make you think twice?
Yes. So after the London Paralympic Games, I was like, I did not want anything to do with swimming. I had recently just trained at the Australian Institute of Sport for quite a number of years beforehand, and I started getting these shoulder injuries about 2 to 3 years before the London Games. And I swam through these shoulder injuries because I would talk to my coach about how my shoulders were sore, and he would say, like, if you don't come to training no matter what, then you're going to lose your swimming scholarship. And for me, like, being an AIS swimmer was like everything that I had. And so I would go to training day in and day out, and I would swim on my shoulders. So my cartilage was literally peeling off my shoulders, and my bicep tendons, I had tears all through them. And then my left shoulder was like stretched so much that it was like rattling around in the socket, which is quite painful to swim, 8 to 10 kilometres a day on, which is what I was doing.
Cool.
So I was getting to the point where I would get out of the pool and I couldn't even lift my arms up to wash my hair in the shower. Like, it was so painful. And so by the time I kind of stumbled over the line in London with 4 gold medals.
Just a quick stumble onto the top of the podium
I'm telling
4 times.
you, yeah, imagine just tripping onto the top of the podium.
Just casually,
No, but it was very, very tough emotionally for me to get to that point. And so when I finished London, I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this sport anymore. Like, I feel like I wasn't taken care of very well. And like, I was at that age where I was very vulnerable. So I was like 18 years old. Like, I was at the point where I should have been starting to stand up for myself, but I was too scared to. Anyway, so I got to the end of London and was like, I don't want anything to do with it anymore. And I had both of my shoulders reconstructed. And I was like, that's it. Anyway, Swimming Australia invited me to this swimming camp, and I had like my arms in slings and I had a prosthetic, and you should have seen some of the looks I got.
Oh, doll.
People be like, what?
They're like, no, this is a swimming camp. I think you took a wrong turn. This is for athletes. The hospital is a different way.
It was so bad. Anyway, I would get looks like, what happened to you? And like people don't believe you when you say like, I just swam too much. But yeah, so I had both my shoulders reconstructed and I went on this swim camp and I was sitting there like all mopey because it was at the AIS and I had really bad associated memories of AIS, Australian Institute of Sport. And I was sitting there with my arms in a sling being like, look at what you've done to me kind of thing. And then we had Petria Thomas come into the camp and she spoke to our swim team and she was talking about how she had her shoulder reconstructed and then 1 year later she won an Olympic gold medal. And I was like sitting there wide-eyed being like this isn't the end of the road for me kind of thing. And so like that afternoon I got back in the pool, even though I couldn't really move my shoulders, but I just like wanted to get in. And I started working with a coach who would just train me kind of like once a day. And we worked up to qualifying for the World Championship swim team about 9 months later. And then I went to the World Championships around about a year after my shoulder reconstructions. And I broke like my first world record. Like I was just so motivated and I was just like kind of had this nothing can stop me mentality. And, you know, it was a really interesting lesson in what like pressure can do to your performance because I went into that race with being like, I have absolutely no expectations of myself, like just do what you can kind of do thing. And every single time I've raced with that mentality, which is really hard to do, I've performed so well.
You say it's hard to do. Do you mean it's hard to just block out everybody else and everything else and just think about you and your own expectations?
Oh, big time. You know, you've got people who feed you like a lot of false information in the lead up to games and like people, I don't know, even just when you're walking down the street and someone's like, oh, good luck for the Paralympics or like, you're going to win gold. Like people always say, you're going to win gold, you're going to win gold, you're going to win gold. And then you hear that over and over and over again. And then when you get to a Paralympics, you're like, well, shit, what if I don't win gold? And it's kind of like you're swimming for everybody else. But yeah, all the times that I've just been like, do what you can do, swim for yourself, like you've got this, I've swum really well. I don't know, everyone always thinks that athletes are so positive and like unstoppable, but it's actually like the complete opposite. We're always like questioning ourselves and like wondering if what we're doing is the right thing. And like I remember before my 100-metre backstroke race in Rio, like I was tipped to win the gold medal. Literally half an hour before my race, I was in the bathroom, like in a bathroom toilet stall, like about to have a panic attack. So, you know, I think it's like the cool thing about the Olympics and Paralympics is that some of the athletes feel that way and then they just walk out and they just do their thing.
Well, how did you come back from that? Like, how did you get through that moment and get in the pool?
I just had to tell myself, like, you know, you've broken a world record in this event. You're going in as number one. You didn't fluke your way to that point. And, like, you've got this. But there's always that voice in your head that's telling you, like, what if? So, like, that's why I really like seeing athletes kind of do a personal best time or, like, you know, swim really well because like half an hour before you have no idea what mental state they were in.
Ellie, I don't know if you'll win a gold medal or not, but I hope you do.
Thank you.
And more than that, I hope you have fun and that everyone's jealous of your leg because that's what's important. I hope you got a sense of how charismatic Ellie is from listening to our conversation. I honestly laughed so much and we just clicked straight away. She was very generous the way she dealt with all of my curious questions and she really embraced the spirit of No Filter in her answers. The single-minded focus of professional athletes just, I don't know, it never ceases to amaze me. I cannot wait to cheer Ellie on in Tokyo when she competes in the Paralympics later this year. Next week on No Filter, I speak with journalist Amal Awar. And if you're at the stage of life, like many are, where your parents are ageing and you are navigating new realities and doctor's appointments and nursing homes and coming to terms with how your relationship with your parents is changing, then this interview is surprisingly uplifting and a must listen. No Filter is produced by Bridget Northeast, and I will see you on Mamma Mia.